Let's go. So obviously, I want to talk to you about your whole time and not. So it's only right. I'll start with the debut against Maidstone. Obviously, probably not the most ideal start for you, but I just wanted to know like how you dealt with that after the game because obviously it's tough as a goalkeeper when you come in on loan and you try and make an impression, and the day just really didn't go for you.
Yeah, it was a rough start. I think anyone could really see that, to be honest with you. Obviously I came into the clubs just a few days before, went in, I tried to, watch as many clips and things and get ready for how we play and all that. But ultimately, like two things that happened for the goals and that didn't go my way. We lost on penalty, so it was tough. Um, you're kind of sitting in the changing room after thinking, oh, this is like the worst possible way it could start almost. It's not how you plan things out in your head, when I decided to come in that. So it was difficult. And I think for like the next couple of weeks after in that, training was massive for me. I was just trying to keep my head down and kind of show everyone that I had more to offer than what I did in that game.
See, I was going to ask you about Tom Wheel, further on in the interview, but after you just said there that the training was massive for you, I just want to know what kind of role he played for you while she was at Knox.
Huge, yeah. Tom played a huge part. In me coming, he was the main factor in me coming. He messaged me before there was anything really, and just asked me if I fancied it and that, and then I kind of just said I would come in for a couple of days just to train, so and see what it was like, and he was up for that, so I went up, and obviously I know Tom well from my time at Norwich. He was a goalkeeping coach when I first went there and got on really well with him, so um, he was huge in training and off the pitch. Behind the scenes, the amount of research he does on other teams and things like that. I think for the whole club, can't really be understated how much he does and how much he played a part towards that promotion last season. For me personally as well, he wasn't always straightforward for me at Notts. Obviously there was the debut and then there was after that as well. When I didn't play in the game against Bromley and things like that, and it was all very difficult. But I think when I did get my chance and things like that, he really helped to make sure I was ready, and on top of things. So I think Tom played a huge part during the whole process.
Yeah, I love that, mate. And you kind of just led me into my next question because I was going to ask you, because obviously after the debut, you didn't really get much of a look in the team, and obviously Tiernan played a few games, especially against Bromley, etc. I just wanted to know for you, like, obviously football is quite a mentally demanding game. So when something like that don't go for you, like, how does that feel as a player?
That was probably one of the most difficult periods, like week or so or whatever, I've had in football. To be honest with you, before the Bromley game, where I was kind of expecting to play in my own head and things like that. And then when the gaffer pulled me in and said I wasn't going to be playing, it was really tough one to take, to be honest with you. Tiernan obviously went in and did fantastic. And I got on so well with Tiernan and everything. So when he was in playing, that I wanted him to do well. Had nothing against him. It's just the way it happens. He went in and played well and took his chance. So it was really difficult to kind of get my head around that. But my chance ended up coming, against Scunthorpe a couple of weeks later. So that was really demanding on me, and I thought that was like a really important time for me to kind of get my head right and keep it down and just keep working hard.
Yeah, I love that, mate. And obviously, as a man who prepared for the interview, you obviously understand now that the next question was about the Scunthorpe game.
Yeah,
Obviously, the next time you played, but I just want to know because obviously that was a bit of a strange one for you, I guess, because see Sam starts, but then he's clattered and he's injured, and you're called upon. But then obviously we've just spoke about like before that how it was tough mentally for you, and then you basically thrown into the deep end because this is the first time since your debut that the fans are going to see you. But obviously the stadium as well was pretty busy that day. I think it was like 16,000, and you're coming on, and the reception that you got from the cop especially was incredible. I just wanted to know, like, did that help settle your nerves a little bit in terms of because I don't know, I know for full well like the Notts fans wouldn't have given you a sour reaction, but like obviously within you and how you just spoke about how it was tough for you mentally, did it help you to see like so many people on their feet for you when you ran over to the cop?
100%. Yeah, I think you know, when Sam went down, it's obviously never nice seeing anyone get injured, but I kind of just thought like this is my chance. I knew what I was capable of doing and things like that. And I'd been focused so much in training leading up to that of what the manager wants and everything. So like a part of me, the first part of me almost, and probably won't mind me saying this, was proving the manager wrong from his decision a couple of weeks ago. And then obviously when I came on, the fans gave me a great reception, which helped me. And I just thought to myself, like, there's no better way to get chucked in really in front of everyone, like at full stadium as it was. Great atmosphere in that. I think we were 2-0 up at the time as well already. So that helped ease it a bit. And, you know, I just had so much trust in all the boys. Even though I'd only played one game, Maidstone, where it didn't go well, I had so much trust in all the boys and what the manager was trying to do that I knew that I could step in and do the task that was needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So after the Scunthorpe game, we went to Altrincham on the Tuesday night. Obviously, you've started that game. They get a penalty. You do what you do best, clearly, and save it. I just want to know, like, because that for me, I was stood behind that goal, and I was amazed that you just basically sprung and tipped that wide. So obviously, and I think that for me, although we didn't know at the time about the context of the season, but I feel like that was the one where I thought, well, if we go to penalties here in the playoffs, which we'll get to eventually, obviously, I thought, well, maybe this could be your time. But I just want to know, like, obviously, after the start you had, and then a Scunthorpe game where you came on, like, did really well for yourself, didn't concede a goal, and then to have that moment with the penalty save, the whole away end's gone absolutely mental. The players are jumping all over you. You must have felt on top of the world.
Yeah, that was huge for me. I think that was kind of the start of what was to come. You know, I had that game in my head and I knew I was going to be playing, so I was fully focused on it again. Tom did his research and that and we spoke before the game. I knew the penalty taker, what he was likely to do. And yeah, to do it in front of the fans that had travelled up on the Tuesday night was unbelievable, to be honest with you. So you know that gave me massive confidence, I think, because it was quite early on in the game as well, just for the rest of the game kind of settling. And I kind of knew that yeah, I've managed to do something here that can kind of give me a foothold and like almost stamp myself on the season. Because I knew that obviously Sam had been performing well and everything, but I kind of seen it as like and Tiernan had gone and performed well as well. This is like my chance to kind of get a foothold in it and hopefully be able to play more of a part in the finishing weeks of the season. So you know, when that happened, I was delighted. I was buzzing right in front of the Notts fans. You know, the roar was great in that, and I think all the boys were brilliant. You know, they seemed delighted for me and everything. So yeah, it was a huge part of my time at Notts, that save. Yeah, I was delighted with it.
Yeah, that's brilliant, mate. Honestly, I can remember when you saved that. That was just like, wow, absolutely incredible. So then, obviously, the following Saturday we played Wealdstone. We obviously started that game and then kept a clean sheet in that as well. So in the time that you came on against Scunthorpe to that, you played, I think it was around 200. I don't want to do it off the top of my head, but about 240 minutes of football. Didn't concede a
Yeah,
goal.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
so obviously, from your debut, which obviously didn't go too well, to the 240 minutes with a clean sheet in a not shirt, did that feel a million miles away after your debut? And I suppose more importantly, like, did you really feel like you played a massive part in the squad at that point?
Yeah, I think like as you say, like it felt so far away, and I think as I touch back on what I said earlier, that's like the important thing for me about kind of keeping my head. And I had maybe three weeks earlier the disappointment of not playing the Bromley Barnet games, and Eastleigh I think it was, like, the disappointment of not playing in them games, going to being chucked in playing three in a row in that, and we all knew how important every single game was. You know what I mean? It was us and Wrexham, and neither of us could afford to slip up. So again, going into the Wealdstone game, I kind of was delighted to be given that opportunity to start and kind of just seeing it as another opportunity. Like I need to go and perform well here, and I think not just a lot of the time you kind of thinking like I need to do well here for myself and things like that. But I think we all felt the pressure of what we were like building towards. And as I said, it was so tight we couldn't afford to drop points at any moment during that season. So I think coming in, I had that as well, where I was just so focused for the boys. You know, even though I hadn't been playing in that, I can see how hard everyone's working, staff, players, and all that behind the scenes to kind of keep it going and get us promoted. So you just know that you're almost a cog in the chain, and you just need to come in, do your job, and help everyone try to get over that finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. So then obviously before we speak about the playoffs, there was one more game that you started in, and that was against Maidstone at their place. Obviously for you, that must have been quite big when you speak about like that was who you made your debut against to then now. But obviously the context of the day was if Wrexham had won their game, which they did, obviously they took the title. So how was there added pressure going into that game? Because obviously you didn't want to lose because then that would have been the title over before Wrexham even played. But then obviously I think we were 3-0 up and then it went back to 3-2 before we made it 5-2. So at that point of 3-2, did you think like, damn, this could be a day to forget?
100%. I think before it going into it, you know, we knew how strong Wrexham were and that they probably wouldn't slip up, which they didn't in the end ultimately. But all the talk from us really was we just have to do our job and hope something happens. You know what I mean? So before we go in, we were fully focused trying to win. Obviously, we're 3-0 up, everything was going well. And when they pulled it back to 3-2, you do get that slight moment in your head where you're thinking, oh no, not today. But thankfully we got Jim O'Brien hat-trick that day. So we kind of all switched on. Ultimately, Wrexham went and beat Bournemouth later on in the day and won it there. But I think it was not just for that, but it was so important for us to keep on a good run going into the playoffs, you know, winning games. I think if we started getting into a bit of slackness, knowing that oh we can't win the league, and we just took our foot off the gas, it wouldn't have been healthy for us. And I think the gaffer and all the staff and that were huge on that with us, that we had to keep pushing, and we weren't slowing down no matter what. If we weren't going to win the league or we hadn't won the league or whatever. So I think yeah, the last few games were huge to build momentum to go into the playoffs really, and we knew if that was going to be the case that we wouldn't win the league, that we needed to be on it.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, you touched on there that obviously Wrexham beat Bournemouth, so then it was obviously Bournemouth we played in the playoffs, and obviously you didn't play in that game. But one thing I did notice is that it as the game progressed into like the later stages of the extra time, it looked like you was ready to come on, like gloves were on and all ready. So I just wanted to know, was the plan obviously before Jody scored, was the plan to come on for the shootout in the semis as well?
Yeah, it was. So I think it was just like about 5 minutes into when extra time had started. Tom had said to me, like, if we go to penalties, the gaffer's going to put you on. I didn't know anything about it before the game or anything, but we'd obviously done a lot of practice in the week leading up in that. And kind of in my head, to be honest with you, I knew like that there would be a chance the gaffer would do something like that because he goes into so much detail with everything. So when we were practicing penalties, I was kind of putting my all into it, thinking like I might be able to get a chance here if something like this happens. So about 5 minutes into extra time, Tom spoke to me and said, yeah, if we go to penalties, you're going to go on. So I was kind of just getting myself ready for that. And obviously, the longer it went on, the more it looked like we were. I think Aidan Baldwin ended up having to come off injured, and that was our fourth sub used. So at that was about 3-4 minutes ago, maybe. At that point, I knew I wasn't coming on. And then obviously Jody went and did what he did, which was unbelievable. Couldn't have had a better way to win the semi. And then when all the fans came on and that, it was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that was to my next question, really, because obviously you were part of that bench when the goal goes in. But as we saw from the videos, like the bench just went absolutely crazy. Pretty much the whole stadium just went absolutely mental. But I think the thing with that video is that it showed as really just how together the squad was. But that's my question for you is like, how good did it feel to have that moment celebrating like that with the squad that you've got a squad of players and management team that have just put everything into being successful week in, week out. So to have that moment where you can all celebrate like that together in front of a full Meadow Lane, like surely that must have been like wow. like just an incredible footballing moment for yourself.
Yeah, it was. It was so good. I think the squad of boys, we all got on so well the full season. And it had been such a draining season, to be honest with you, because every single week was a massive game. We couldn't slip up in any games, and when things like that happen, I think the boys were all so close. You could see it, how delighted we were for each other. For Jody, scoring the goal as well, and then obviously with the fans, the atmosphere was brilliant that day. So even when they spilled onto the pitch and that, we were kind of walking around, and it was brilliant being with the fans and that. But it was so good when you were bumping into other teammates and that. Do you know what I mean? During them celebrations. So yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I love that, mate. Love that. I didn't get on the pitch because obviously I was up at the top of the cop. But if I was on there,
Yeah.
I think I probably would have started crying. I can't lie to you. So obviously we move on now to Wembley. And before we talk about the penalty saves, which I was coming, don't you worry about that. I just want to know. So obviously you see the lineup. Obviously you've not started, but obviously in the back of your mind, especially now after you told me how Tom spoke to you during the semi-final, surely you must have thought to yourself like, well, if there's any chance I can go on for a penalty shootout, surely it has to be at Wembley.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, to be honest with you. I'd spoke about it kind of briefly, and that I used to share lists with Matty Palmer and Toby into training and that, and we'd kind of mentioned it. Obviously, I said to them oh, I would have been coming on if I went to penalties and everything like that. So we kind of just joked around saying oh, imagine if it happened at Wembley and that, and I came on for the penalties and things. So I did have it in the back of my mind the whole time, to be honest with you. So I was kind of just preparing myself for that almost. I knew obviously Slopes was going to be playing in the game. I'd be on the bench. So I was just preparing myself for if that moment might happen, to be honest with you. And we were doing lots and training the week leading up, practicing what we think the Chesterfield penalties were going to be. We were watching clips and that. We sat down for, I think it was on the Friday before the game, about 45 minutes. Me, Tiernan, and Sam and Tom watched their penalties, every single one of their players' penalties, their run ups and things like that. We were trying to take everything in. And then it was all in the preparation, to be honest with you, and kind of me just getting my head on it that was a possibility. And I think that helped me remain so calm when it came to actually happening, because I had built it up in my head almost, and imagined that it could happen. So it wasn't as if I was just chucked on quickly, on you go, try save a couple of penalties. You know what I mean? It was all pre-planned almost in my head, and I'd been imagining it for a week.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the difference with the club now. Like everything seems to be pre-planned. Like we've never rushed into anything recently, and I think that's the biggest difference we've had now, and especially under the management of Williams as well. But
Yeah.
obviously, so you've been subbed on in extra time, and there's 30,000 people around you, tense as anything in anticipation for the penalty shootout. So then Cameron's won the toss, and you heard the roar when he pointed down our end. Like the fans were absolutely loving that. And then we get into the penalty shootout, and I think it's Darren Oldacre who steps up, and you saved that one. I just want you to basically just speak to me about how that felt to. Obviously, the first save in a penalty shootout is always very important, and I just wanted to know how it felt for you to get that.
It was massive. To be honest, I can't even describe the feeling. It was just pure elation, in front of the Notts fans as well. Made it so special. Um, as soon as I saved it, as I said, we had everything planned out. We had done a full presentation on penalties, what we should do if we scored, if we saved one, if we missed one, what we should do before, and everything before or after. So, as soon as I saved it, to be honest with you, I just remember that we'd been told to celebrate if we did manage to save or score one. So that was my first thought. And then straight away it was kind of, right, where's the ball? I had to grab the ball and give it to the next taker. So that was the next thing going through my mind. And I think the next one was Ruben maybe. And yeah, I just remember like Ruben walking up, just knowing he was going to score. To be honest with you, he had the biggest smile on his face like before. And yeah, that was kind of just as soon as you save it, you get that massive elation, and then it's kind of back to business. And we've got more to deal with, and to help the boys score their penalties that come up to take them. I think that was the main aim of me giving the ball to them. It's almost like a friendly face in such a high pressure situation. So I knew that I had a role to play in not just saving the penalties, but the start of their penalty routine as well, giving them the ball and maybe a couple of words of encouragement. So it was kind of just switched on again as soon as I got over that happiness of saving the penalty.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that as well because I didn't even realise how important that would be to have a friendly face giving them the ball. But now you've mentioned it, like I can understand, like for like just a psychological battle of the penalty shootout as well. But obviously, then we move on to that Jeff King save, and I think that one's the most memorable because the amount of times I've seen that photo, like even like for myself, the how many times I tweeted that as a joke, but I just can't stop watching it. Even today, I'll probably watch it again. I don't even know what you saved it with, if I'm going to be honest. It was like hand and then boot. But I just want to know, like, after you've saved that, surely you thought to yourself, like, wow, like this is the moment. Because at that point, we're just one successful penalty away from the return.
Yeah, and that was exactly it. To be honest with you, I couldn't even really remember how I'd saved it. Straight after I saved it, I thought it was just a dive and a simple save, to be honest with you. And then the boys were coming up to me after and that one, what a save and everything. And I didn't even realise what it was like until I got back in the changing room and I'd seen a video of it. So yeah, that was the best moment by far out of them all. I kind of knew once I saved that one that I backed the boys to score their penalties. And in my head, I just knew we'd won. Even when Bozzy missed his one, I still didn't even think there was a chance that we were going to lose the penalty shootout. So yeah, the feeling of that, it's really hard to remember what it was actually like in the moment, because it was just a pure buzz of adrenaline going through my body, to be honest with you. But yeah, what a moment! By far the best in my career.
Yeah, that was insane. Honestly, insane. I can't even begin to tell you like how that made me feel as a fan. So obviously then Hedwin steps up, does his thing, scores a penalty to get us back to the EFL. And obviously that moment, like that whole not send just went mental. Everyone's running over, players in tears, fans in tears. But I think the main question I want to ask you from that point is like you played a massive part in that penalty shootout. So how does it feel to almost have that name now, where when people look back at the history of the club and they look at this playoff semi final, they're probably going to say, "Oh, Archie Mair played his role." Like, how does it feel to have that sort of name in the history of this club?
So good, yeah, so good. As I say, like the club is huge, and I can remember coming. I think it was 3, 4 years ago when I was on loan at Kingsland. And it was a COVID year, so there was no fans coming to play against Notts County away, and just thinking like, how the hell are these in the National League? So that was kind of the main thing, is putting the club back where it should be, and being able to play a part in that, right at the end in the penalty shootout was, yeah, it's unbelievable, and it's something that I'll always remember. I'm sure for as long as I play, I don't know if I'll have a 15-minute spell in my career that'll be better than that. The feeling, happiness for the boys, the fans, the staff, just everyone. Um, yeah, it was amazing, and yeah, I can't understate how proud I am to be able to say that I helped the club get back to where they should be.
Yeah, I love that, mate. I suppose my final question really has to be like, is there any final words or not? Because I mean, the amount of tattoos I've seen of people like with their name, with your name rather, on their bodies. Like even when we went to Morecambe on Tuesday night, there's a lad on the bus that had your name with your initials and your shirt number on his arse cheek, mate. So that must feel like a bit bizarre, but I suppose you've earned that right.
Yeah, it is. It is completely bizarre, to be honest with you. And if I'm being honest, yeah, I don't encourage anyone getting my name tattooed on them, but each their own. Um, but yeah, it's been amazing, you know, the support and all that. I was on holiday, I think a month later after with my mates, and I was in some bar, and some guy came up to me, you know, and he was a Notts County fan, and I think there's so many things like that. He just came up and thanked me and that, and there's people all over that, you know, my family know or friends know and things like that that work with all around the country up in Scotland as well that have links to Notts County and that. And I think it just shows how big the club is. And yeah, I'm just delighted that I've managed to bring a bit of happiness to those fans who I know have had a few tough years. And yeah, I'll forever be grateful for how nice everyone's been, happy for me to be in, and the support I've had. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone, really, all the fans and everyone for making that moment special. And yeah.
Well, that was the perfect way to end, mate. Thank you very much.